Yes, okay. Hello, everyone. I am very, very happy that I can welcome today, live from Basel, my friends Catia Fonseca and Alain Bindels. They both are digital innovation manager at Roche, and today they will introduce us to the topic diversity and partnerships in a new age. You will get to know what wicked problems are and how system thinking and design thinking can help us to explore those wicked problems. Thank you very much. And I have an echo here. So maybe one of you just switch off the mic and only one speaks. So go ahead, the floor is yours, Catia and Alan.
Thank you, Petra. Thank you all for joining us today. And as Petra mentioned, we are going to speak and share some insights on diversity and partnerships in this age to actually tackle urban challenge. So I would like to start by maybe explaining about what do we mean by urban challenge being wicked problems. So wicked problems are defined by a set of characteristics that I would like to focus on some of those because they will be important when we talk about how can we tackle these problems. So wicked problems are complex problems because they are multi-causal, they involve many stakeholders, but most important, it's about why these problems, they do not exist in isolation. They are connected to other very important problems. And that complexity is really amplified. So if you think about cities, cities are complex. They involve many systems, and they actually involve systems that are connected. Just think about the example from what happened in the island of Borneo. In the 50s, the population actually asked for support to the World Health Organization to actually eradicate malaria. So the World Health Organization provided large quantities of DDT that they sprayed the mosquitoes. And in the short run, actually, they got rid of the malaria. But what happened is that in addition to the mosquitoes they affected, they also affected other insects that were eaten by geckos. The geckos were eaten by the cats, and the cat population started dying. So that led to the rise of the rat population and to many other diseases. So this is just an example of some of the pitfalls when we actually don't look at the problems in the complexity and in the right frame set. So I'll pass now to my friend Alain to talk about the sustainability piece.
Thank you, Catia. And I wanted as well where the slides are, but I see the slides are now up and we are on slide number 4. So we can go to slide number 4. Okay, so as Catia mentioned, wicked problems are very multifactorial and there's multiple stakeholders involved. And of course, digitalization will change the way we are working, living in our future cities. So what does this mean, right? I mean, if you think about the 4th Industrial Revolution, there will be a lot of changes happening in our society. And our cities needs to become more inclusive, safe, and also sustainable. So therefore, we also focus on sustainability and the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. And the 17 goals, of course, are focusing on sustainability. And one of them, goal number 11, is really focusing on sustainable cities and communities. And if we go to the next slide, we can see also if we ask engineers or digital engineers that are working on challenges of the future, what are the top 10 challenges globally? We see a lot of these challenges are related to communities, to cities, like clean energy, of course, food security, but also, for example, pandemics was being mentioned, right? So how can we prepare for these very complex, multifactorial challenges, and how can we solve them with new tools and new ways of working?
Thank you, Alain. And because these complex problems are very hard to tackle, we actually would like to introduce you 2 concepts, 2 frameworks. One is the design thinking and the other is about systems thinking. And we will bring that, again, connecting to the fact that we need to look at each of the challenge of the urban challenge in the context of where are they happening. So if you think about a traffic congestion problem. If you are looking in LA versus a big city in Nigeria, it's the same problem that you are tackling, but actually in a completely different context. So that's why we are bringing these two frameworks and mindsets from design thinking and systems thinking, because we really need a complete shift in the way we tackle problems.
Yes, and if we think about design thinking and system thinking, right, everybody is a designer. And this is something that we, myself and Catia, strongly believe in. This is also something that was mentioned by Tim Brown, who's one of the gurus or one of the founders of the design thinking approach that's currently being used in many different industries. So if we equip citizens, governments, and stakeholders with the right tools and the right approaches, everybody can become a designer and solve these wicked challenges. Another thing that we also became aware of when we were looking also at the World Economic Forum, like a lot of these challenges that are faced in society, right? I mean, you already heard from Catia a few examples. They will not necessarily be solved by governments and by country level. It's really local communities, local cities, groups getting together, right? Citizens together with maybe governments, local governments, with NGOs, with corporates. Together they will solve these challenges in their local community. So we need to activate as well local citizens, local communities to really solve these challenges. We cannot do this alone, but we need to activate many citizens in these communities to do that for us. And as I mentioned before, imagine that we would start working and thinking like a designer. I mean, design thinking is an approach that was coming in around the 70s or 1980s of the last century, where actually designers were creating a framework, an iterated framework to solve complex challenges. What does it mean, right? So design thinking is a human-centric approach that is really focusing on people's needs. So it's always focusing on the end user. So imagine like the smart city problem, right? A problem with pollution. It's really important to understand what is that problem really about? What do the citizens experience? So it's really important that you invite the stakeholders, the different stakeholders in that discussion and really understand the problem from the people's perspective. Then afterwards, you can really challenge your assumptions. You can define, of course, the problem better and also really develop solutions in collaboration with a diverse group of people. So really make sure that you have a diverse group of people in there. And we will go in a little bit more detail in a few minutes from now.
And I would like to mention the systems thinking and why we find it so important. So the systems thinking mindset is really about taking a step back and looking at the problem in the context, but also, so you look at the whole, but you also look at the parts and how they are interconnected. Just think about, for example, homelessness problem, right? So in that problem, you think about, well, lack of housing. But then you can look at the socioeconomic and educational level in that context. For example, are we talking about mental health problems, drug abuse, substance abuse problems in that city? What unemployment rise? So you are looking at different components of a problem, and that's what systems thinking is about, is looking at the different connectedness of the components that lead to that problem. So we will come back to this a bit later. And this is just to give you an example, the complexity, and that's why we call CT the system of systems. So even in governments, we see how much silos we are working on. The energy department, the water department, the service, the people, the education. But at the end of the day, when you tackle complex problems, complex city problems, you need to bring these partners together. You need to break these silos. And that leads us to the next part, which is diversity and partnerships. So previously we spoke about frameworks, the design thinking and the systems thinking, but you cannot achieve solutions that are sustainable and long-term without diversity and partnership. And why they are essential? Because we already mentioned that city problems are actually multi-component problems, and then you need collective intelligence. You need to tap into your citizens to navigate this complexity and use this new digital age where we can actually be connected across the world and the organizations. So why diversity and partnership then is important? So these different perspectives bring the solutions to be more sustainable and really applicable in different parts of the world. You tap into the crowdsourcing of citizens. You make use of the expertise around the world. And of course, you need to involve the governments because they will be part of setting up those solutions and scaling them up for a larger population. So make sure you really involve these different partners, public, private, NGOs, governments, academia, when you are trying to tackle a problem and design solutions.
Yes, thank you, Catia. So imagine that you now leave this forum, this amazing digital Davos forum, and you want to start tomorrow. So where can you start? What can I do next to really make this happen in my city, in my local community? So again, as myself and Catia are using these methodologies ourselves as well, and we have spoken with different experts, also from governments, from NGOs, from startups, and also from different parts of the world, to better understand what are the key success factors. So again, if you go back and you want to apply design thinking, get those diverse group of people together, get really the end users, the people that are impacted by that problem in the room, and really do the empathy with them. Ask them questions like, why is this a problem for them? For example, if you think about pollution, right? You would get, for example, citizens, you get maybe transport companies, infrastructure companies involved, corporates, local corporates that are also very much affected by pollution or actually creating pollution. And you really try to understand, okay, what is the complexity of this problem? What are the different stakeholders saying? Then once you have defined really what is the problem about, you again get this diverse group of people together and co-design with them in the ideation phase, brainstorm really on solutions. And again, do this in a very iterative approach, right? So you really create these solutions, these ideas, you test them directly again with a prototype, with the customers, with the end users. So rather than waiting for months and investing a lot of resources, do it in a small pilot, do it in a small experiment. So you show the mock-ups, the experiments to the end users, to the companies, to the stakeholders, to the governments, and say, okay, this is what we want to do. What do you think about it? So they will give you feedback on your idea before you have invested months or years of development time. So do this iterative approach, getting feedback on the ideas as quick as possible. Other tools and templates, of course, are available. So most of these tools are open source. So if you go online to Stanford University or to the Open University, as you can see here, this example, there's many tools you can find online and you can start tomorrow. We also would recommend, if it's the first time that you're using these tools, maybe upskill your employees or your team with these new tools. Get maybe a coach in the beginning, get somebody from a local community that really can support you, and use these open source tools to really build the value proposition of your idea, to understand the customer needs, and to also test again your prototypes in a very easy way without too much investment, right? This whole approach is about doing it fast with not a lot of resources and making it easy for end users to give feedback to your ideas. So all of these resources are available, and we would really recommend you to tap into these available resources that are online.
So we run also many interviews to different partners, both from academia, from the European Innovation Council, and what did we learn were the success factors. So start local, start with your community, because as Alain mentioned, this is the advantage of actually understanding your customer, understanding the context, and actually don't need so many resources. But at the same time, really tap into your citizens, the ones that are passionate and they have the skills and the expertise. You also have to learn how to fail fast, but because you start in a small scale, you actually learn from it and you reiterate and refine your solution. So why it's important to have platforms, and why we really recommend that governments actually stimulate and incentivize these virtual networks, because in these platforms, in these virtual spaces, you can actually reach out to people across the continents that have already developed solutions to tackle similar problems. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Of course, just make sure that when you tap into other solutions that you make sure that they are adjustable and refined for your specific, your local problem. And make sure that you also bring the right partners and incentivize, because as we said, we need to have both private and public working together. And for that, you need to understand what's in it and how can you actually show the right data and the right value proposition using the two methodologies that we mentioned.
Would you allow me to jump in with some questions?
Absolutely, absolutely.
First of all, it is really, really interesting. So we are living in Switzerland. We have language barriers, we have cultural barriers, and there is a question from how do you deal with these cultural barriers in design thinking? And also, you mentioned something that I think is really super interesting, how to break up the silos. Where do you start? If you do this in a city, do you start with the mayor? Where do you start? But I would like to ask you the first question, how do you deal with cultural barriers?
Yeah, I mean, of course, ourselves, we also organize like these type of workshops, right? Like design thinking or system thinking workshops where we have very diverse backgrounds, people from very different backgrounds, cultural differences. And it's very important to give everybody the space to also speak up, because not everybody is used maybe to speak up in a big room with many people. So we often, break the groups up in smaller groups and give everybody the thinking time, to really think, what is my opinion about this topic? So we ask people to write down their thinking, their ideas, and then ask everybody to also share out their ideas, because it's not natural for people, not for everybody to share out and speak up their ideas. So you have, of course, introvert and extrovert individuals. So you need to cater for both type of individuals, right? To make sure that everybody can speak and that nobody is left out. So this is one, of course, tip, which is for a coach or facilitator very easy to do. I mean, Catia, you want to maybe add?
Yeah. I usually like the exercise of bring the elephant into the room. So what's in people's mind? What is blocking them? What is their worries? What's their assumptions? And usually from different cultural backgrounds, we do, as Alain was mentioning, in smaller groups, and we make sure that people actually connect in smaller groups first to get to know each other. But the most important is that if there are concerns, we always leave the space for people to actually share their concerns or their assumptions, because this is a lot of times where the problem starts. So we need to really start the workshops always with making sure that whatever are their worries, whatever are their assumptions, this is brought in at the beginning of the workshops. And we keep working, of course, throughout the days. But it's having, we also spend time to bring what is the important thing to bring to this mindset. It's really listening and making sure that people listen to everyone in the room and everyone has the space, as Alain was mentioning.
Thank you very much, Catia. I was another question, and what I see is we just move into this direction. We need to, in the future, we need to have some kind of new public-private partnerships. So what do you believe are the key success factors? And again, I'm addressing the topic of silos that was mentioned several times today. So what are the key success factors for future public-private partnerships?
I mean, for me, I really see opportunity also with digitalization, that we have more opportunities to connect with citizens, with different organizations. So in the past, it was very difficult to find the people, to find the right skills, and to communicate also with a large group of individuals. I think now with digitalization, a government or local government can easily even, through social media, through different platforms, share their challenge and really open up. We are looking for input from citizens, from corporates, from startups. So that's one thing, right? Make a platform, make it visible, make it available. And we have very good examples, of course, of this. So it's really about opening up as well to the society, and also and invite people to the table. I think that is very important.
Yeah. Actively reaching out, actually, you really need to actively bring those partners, because it's not only cultural difference, but also the priorities are different. So this is something that usually comes always to the table. Every partner, private and public, they will have different priorities. And so you need to make sure that whatever solution, whatever the problem you are tackling, that brings these different perspectives. So, and this is part of how you build this trust. It starts, and in innovation, it's much easier because I think people get that perspective. We are breaking the barriers. So you start with building relationships that are trustful. Yeah. And after that, you really can build on.
Thank you very, very much, Catia and Alain. You see there was the right light flickering, and we're sticking to our time. It was very, very interesting. Thank you very much for your input here. And for all the other participants, please stay with me for the last workshop, for today's last workshop in exactly 5 minutes. I have Tushar Bhatt. He is the CEO of Conwise, and he will give a very interesting presentation about Siri for administration. Thanks again, Catia and Alain. And the rest, please stay with me. See you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.